Morning, everyone. New project today on the Camaro. Working on the deck lid spoiler. While I got everything lined up and the hatch replaced recently, there is a crack in the spoiler, and I think the crack is because people have been pulling on it over the years. And so when you slam the hatch, it's developed a crack up all the way up here. And in fact, I'll give you a little closer look at it. So you can see right there, crack from the bottom up to the top. So what I'm intending to do is take the bolts out and take this off and see what it takes to reinforce and repair that crack before it gets broken all the way through. Right now it's just gone over the top. I expect that if I don't do something with it, it'll crack all the way through, and then I'll have a broken part instead of just a damaged part. So that's my project for today. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get these rubber plugs out of here. Get them broken loose and without hurting anything. Because on the end there are a couple of bolts that stick out. Oh, there it goes. Oh, popped it right off. There we go. Because I want to sneak these off without hurting anything. Been in here a long time. Then you got some 11 millimeter bolts here. Interesting. These guys don't feel like they're very tight, which may be part of the reason why they cracked. Yeah. Back them off here. Well, they have a body sealer underneath them, which may be why they aren't very tight. The body sealer probably has relaxed over time. Well, I have all the fasteners out. The only one I had some trouble with was the one on this far end, where it broke out of the plastic instead of unscrewing. So I'll have to repair that one. But otherwise, you can see I got a pretty good sized crack in here, and I need to make a determination here what the best way is to fix that. It looks like, let's see if I can get this down a little lower here, get some light on it. It looks like it's in the corner here of a web. So I ought to be able to get in there and sand it and apply some adhesive. I've got some different epoxies, so let me see what's appropriate for this. I have the spoiler supported across a couple of sawhorses with some towels. What I've noticed is that the part will flex and you can open and close the crack. So my intention is to glue it and let it sit in the position it is right now, which will close the crack up. For right this minute, I have it closed, but I have opened it up. I've cleaned it with a little isopropyl alcohol, as being kind of the least problematic. But you can see how that crack is opening and closing. When you get to the bottom here, here's that rib, and the crack runs right along the rib, and then actually turns more toward the center here. I'm going to sand a little bit on the inside. My sense is I'm going to do a two-part fix. Since this fits together so nicely, I mean there's a crack there, but the ends meet up at a very close bond line. I have a Loctite product that is super glue, cyanoacrylate, Loctite 406, that is specifically intended for plastic, and it's what they call a wicking grade that will soak in cracks, and it sets very quickly. So my intention is to do a first coat with the 406, and then I have a two-part urethane for plastic bonder that I'll go on the inside of the part, and I'm going to try to treat on the inside and use both products. So in the meantime, I also have, in order for it to stick on the inside, I need to do some sanding, because I want to give the adhesive something to bond to. And I don't know what the best is, but I've got a 40 grit, which is really rough, and I'm going to start with that and see if I can get it to get down in the corners, so to speak, and kind of try and get through the paint. And I know 40 is pretty doggone coarse, so I'm not going to use much of that. I just want to give it enough depth. Let's see what's next here. I got some 100. I think I'll transition to that now. Well, now I have the crack cleaned with alcohol. I've cleaned the sanded areas, so I'm ready to progress a little further. And you can see that it's pretty well sanded out. So I'm going to start, well, a couple things. One is, I know I need to leave it flat like that. I don't want this adhesive to wick out or to run out on this surface. There's several ways. I've never done it quite this way before, but I'm going to give it a try. I thought about masking tape. Masking tape will give you a nice edge, but I don't know how it treats things coming from underneath. So I'm going to hit this with, I'm going to put electrical tape over it, which is plastic, over the crack. Try that again. Because what I would like to do, let's do it this way. I want the crack closed up too, so let's start. Crack starts about there. And then it's going to turn. And the nice thing about electrical tape is it stretches. So let's turn that thing like that. Run it up over the edge. You can't probably see it on camera, but it's gotten it. It's pretty well down. All right. And in this position, it ought to wick in pretty well.
Here's my Loctite glue. I don't want to get any on my hands. I'm going to pick this up and try to roll it a little bit. And then I'm just going to lay a little bead on the back side here. And that ought to do it. I'll put it back in this position. At some point, I will most likely want to refinish this and repaint it and fix it. But for right now, if I can get this down to a very thin bond line, and I may even be able to touch it up, that would be very good. We're going to let that sit and cure. And then I'm going to come back and plan to work with this plastic bonder 2-part. I also have a screw that I've got to get back in, and it doesn't seem like it ruined the threads. It just unscrewed itself rather than the nut coming loose. So I need to take a look at that, and I'll be back in a little while. Well, it's been a few minutes and it seems like it's dried on the back surface. So I'm going to try peeling the tape before it gets totally set. Let's see how we do. Well, so far so good. I still have a thin crack there, but it didn't leak out all over the surface. The tape kept it in place, it looks like. Well, so far so good. Okay, well, it's supposed to take some time to set, so I'm going to try and leave it alone. And then I'm going to come back and work on the back side. Well, while the other section is hardening up, I cleaned up the bolt. I can show it here. There you go. I cleaned up the threads on the bolt. I've cleaned out the hole that it goes into. And the threads are still there, but they're a little bit damaged. Who knows the history? So I mixed up a little bit of 5-minute epoxy here. And I'm just going to put that back in with a little epoxy on the threads. Not going to fill the hole up. Just going to put a little bit on the threads so that maybe they bond in, and I have an easier time getting it apart next time. So let's see if we can get that in there. Feels pretty good. Put my long nose pliers, vice grips on it. I just want to make sure it's tight before the glue sets. There we go. Now at this stage, the super glue cyanoacrylate stuff seems to be pretty solid. The part is not moving. I mean, it won't be full strength for 24 hours or so, but it's I can handle it now. The next stage is I bought some of this Bondo self-adhesive body patch that you'd use on a car. It looks like it's aluminum. It's pretty soft. It's got an adhesive on the back side, and I've been working to take a piece of it and trim it and bend it and bend it so that it kind of makes a little box in the corner that'll push back into this corner. So I'm going to take, I think I've got it to the point where I'm going to peel off the backing and see if I can make it stick. I did have that surface pretty well cleaned, so we'll peel the paper out, and then we're going to punch this down and, so to speak, into the corner, about as far as I can, and stick it here, stick it to the side, stick a piece in my finger, stick that one over, and then this last one is going to go down like that. Because based on the way the cracks happened, it's cracked in this corner and then the crack comes out this way. So my goal here was to make a reinforcement in all three directions. So now it wraps over, down, back around. So it's two thicknesses down in here, but I don't think that'll hurt anything. Take that structural adhesive 2-part and paint that in here. Spread it on top of the surface that I've got roughed up. See if we can get that good and solid. I didn't come up to the top here because this edge sets on the, basically on the deck lid, and I don't want to make that any taller. So I've got enough here that I can kind of push paint a little bit over the edge there. Alright, well, I'm mixing up a batch of this Weld Plastic Bonder. My voice is going to sound weird because based on all the warnings on the package, I pulled out my chemical respirator and I'm working with my face almost into these chemicals so that it's a little better protection, as well as full face, goggles. So again, all for protection. So let's give this a try here. I might actually need to mix 2 batches of it, but we'll see. It's hard to judge exactly what I would need. Bottom seems in good shape. Mix up the second batch. This claims it's got about a 15-minute working time, so we don't have a lot of time to fart around with it. It's actually starting to look pretty good. Oh, I forgot to put my gloves on. Got my chemical gloves sitting right there. Just plain forgot. Okay. That was a good dose down in the corner. I'll clear through the fillet. Well, I've reached the point where the first batch is pretty well set, and It's a little tacky, but it's pretty well set. So I'm going to mix another batch just to lay in that corner and just give it one more level of reinforcement. But before that cures completely, it'll probably bond better. So I reoriented this so that the gravity will help put it down into that corner. It's probably too much, but I don't know that there can be too much unless it's interfering with something on the outside of the car. Because the most stress, where it was cracked and where the most stress ought to be, should be right there in the corner. I pretty well got it cleared out here. I'll use all I got. Alright, well, I'll let that set. See how it does. Well, I have the part ready for reassembly. Get some light in here. The adhesive is set for a few hours. Got a pretty good dose down in the corners. And cleaned the part up. The side with the crack, you can still see there's a hairline crack there, but it doesn't spread and open up anymore. It looks pretty solid. I also did put some fresh body sealer around all the bolt holes. So I'm about ready to go ahead and bolt her back on. So I've managed to get it dropped back in the holes, and see if we can get the nuts put back on here. I know the day will come in the not too distant future where I'll need to touch that paint up and a little bit on the deck lid. Today's project, this was a structural repair to try to keep this from getting worse until I get a chance to spend more time on it, probably over the winter. Now it looks a whole lot better, and I was just worried because every time you go to close the hatch, that was working, and I was closing the hatch with two hands, but even that wasn't helping completely. So I'll just go tighten bolts up here. So there we go, all bolted back down, looking pretty good. Still got the hairline crack there, but you pretty much have to be down below to see it. Up on top it blends in. It looks like the cyanoacrylate stuff soaked in and filled the crack pretty well. So it's a candidate for touch-up. But if you stand back 2 feet, it looks fine. And like I say, temporary repair. All good for today.